Hi everyone, my name is Marani Cosme. I am a UI UX designer at Sparkbox, and I'm so happy to be here with you today. I've had the pleasure of working at Sparkbox for almost 5 years now, and during my time here, I've been able to work on various disciplines and projects that range from UI UX design to front-end development to now design systems. Today, we are going to be talking about how, by focusing on the users of a system, fostering empathy, and making necessary system sacrifices in design, we can build a more effective design system that will encourage easier adoption. So let's start by identifying the diverse users of a design system. Ben Callahan has shown a very similar graphic to this in his previous talk at Symmetry, which dives into what he calls the design system team loop, or how teams are tasked with enabling other teams within a design system. From left to right here, we have our design system team. This program exists to enable those consuming teams. We then have those system consumers, which are tasked with enabling those end users here at the end. So you can see here, and I'm probably missing some people here, this is a lot of users and people interacting in some way, shape, or form with your design system. This also does not show the various levels of Figma experience that you also have to be thinking about. For my talk today, I'm going to be focusing primarily on the design experience in Figma, on those consuming teams that we have here. I will not be focusing on those end users today. And even though I'll only be focusing on this particular group, I'm sure some of the insights I'll be sharing will be relevant to any discipline that is working within a design system. So let's say I'm a designer on a design system project. I've been working tirelessly on a component for months now. I know the ins and outs of this component. I know its intricacies. This component is basically my child. I've taken the best stab at it, and I'm really proud to deliver this to my users. I hand over the component, and my user goes, "Oh my gosh, I don't get it." I feel like we've all been here as system designers at some point in our lives. This scenario can be incredibly discouraging. So let's talk about some ways in which we can mitigate this a little bit better. How can we foster empathy in our design process? Well, first, we have to embody having an iterative mindset. An iterative approach lays the groundwork for an ever-growing design system. Create strong feedback loops by involving users at every stage in your design decision process. Early conversations with users not only can help build trust, but it can ensure that their needs are being addressed in real time. This practice fosters a culture in the team where feedback is welcomed and designers can feel empowered to make recommendations a bit more confidently, leading to better outcomes for everyone. Secondly, we want to encourage cross-discipline collaboration in our process. Engaging with the diverse groups of team members, for example, developers, content writers, and accessibility experts, we can make better informed recommendations in our designs. By collaborating across disciplines, we can break down any potential siloing that might happen. This proactive engagement allows us to identify any potential issues earlier on, preventing misunderstanding and ensuring a smoother workflow. And lastly, by including and consulting people outside of your discipline, you are actively building a culture of trust. Third and last point here I'll talk on building empathy is we want to make sure we are user testing. Leah talked much more in detail about user testing on her talk, but specifically around building empathy. Um, while many design systems do conduct some user testing, it's crucial to emphasize that this should happen earlier and often. By doing frequent and small focused testing, we can help validate our designs, ensuring they align with our users' expectations. By gathering feedback throughout the process, we can make more informed design adjustments, ultimately leading to an overall more successful design system that users will hopefully feel excited to be adopting. Next up, I'm going to be talking about what does it mean to make sacrifices as a designer in a design system for the sake of user experience. Sometimes, as designers, we often find ourselves excited about new Figma features or setting up a system in a more efficient way. This is what I like to call in my projects hacking. And as designers, this can be very exciting. You found a new way of solving a problem that, one, makes perfect sense to you, and two, it's really easy to set up, right? In my previous work, I've had to have a lot of conversations with designers that are really excited on sharing with me the way they've hacked something together. But as a lead, having UX at the forefront and thinking about those end users, I sometimes have to play that devil's advocate and say, look, while this is really cool and get it, I get it. Like Figma features are very cool. It doesn't really make sense from a consumer or user perspective. It's essential to recognize when a design choice, while advantageous for us, may not be serving our users effectively. For instance, let's take a look at a very simple example. A designer is building a button component with its corresponding properties panel. This button has the ability of having icons included. So, how would you go about exposing that particular ability to a user? On the left here, we can see a designer might opt to build button variants on their singular configuration label dropdown. As a user, I might not immediately know that one, this button has icons available because they are hidden inside of this dropdown, which as UXers, we might know this is a big no-no. The naming of these variant options doesn't really make sense. There are options here such as label with trailing icon or label with leading icon or this other name that is way too long for me to read that might be very confusing or frustrating to our users when they're looking at this. Versus, if we take a look at the example on the right, a couple of good things are potentially happening here. I'd say the biggest one I can see is that we are communicating to our users through utilizing Figma booleans or toggles that there are icons available on this button. Once you turn those on, you even get recommended instance swaps for users to not have to track down icon replacements everywhere. You have them right there. We even have the addition of a text property here, which indicates to the user, hey, you can update the text of the button right here. And two, everything you need to adjust on this component exists within this one space or this one properties panel, right? Assuming it might be a better experience for our users. And again, this is a very simple example of how we as designers can embody this constant mindset of user empathy and having to sometimes sacrifice the way we've built something that might make perfect sense to us, and it is more of an efficiency workflow, right? As I was looking for an example to share in this talk, I actually went into the Figma community space and found a bunch of systems that could potentially benefit from some of the things that we've been talking about today. And while I only covered components and component properties as an example, there are many more UX opportunities out there within our design process in Figma, such as, and here are a few examples, what do we name our components? That is a big question that we always have. How do we organize our layers? Identifying clear labels for mode or theme switching. Taking advantage of Figma variable scoping. Making sure our components are set to scale and constrained accordingly, as well as identifying how do we want our design system libraries to be delivered or toggled on by our consumers. I've listed some here that I can think of off the top of my head, but I'm sure there are many other examples and opportunities out there within our process that we should be thinking about user experience every step of the way. So as we wrap up here are the main takeaways that I want you to remember and start thinking about incorporating in your teams and your process. Embrace empathy and iteration in your design process. Always keep the user perspective in mind. Every design decision should consider how users will be interacting with your work. Try to visualize their journey and ask, how will this make sense to them? Er, User test early and often. Don't wait until the end of the design process to gather feedback. Regular testing ensures we're meeting our user needs from the get-go, leading to a design system that hopefully is going to be adopted and much more appreciated, right? Design sacrifices might lead to system success. Focus on user clarity rather than your personal efficiencies. While it can be testing to optimize our workflow, we must ensure that our design is intuitive for our users. Ask yourself if your choices make sense from their perspective. If not, be ready to make those sacrifices for the sake of clarity and usability. So I want to thank you all so much for your time today. I'm looking forward to answering any of the questions you have later in the panel today. I hope you found this talk helpful and inspiring as you continue your journey in design systems. And I hope you enjoy the rest of UnConf. Thank you so much.